Hey guys, how's it going? Vaibhav Sisinty here, and I am with Mr. Ankur Warikoo. What's happening, Ankur?
All good, Vaibhav. Good to be here, man.
I'm very, very excited to have you. And I must say that, there are very few people who I connect with when it comes to the level of energies, and you're probably sit in the top tier of that. So every time I see a video of yours, it's super duper inspiring. And I'm very excited for this one, to be very frank, like super excited. But just to introduce the show, this show doesn't have a name yet. It just goes on my YouTube. It's a podcast where I ask all the questions that I would like to ask to the person. Here in this case, it's you. And I document that and I put that out on YouTube. And that's what the show is about. So let's call it a podcast. Okay, let's just call it a podcast.
That's good enough.
Awesome. So Ankur, how is COVID treating you? Like how has things been?
Not too bad, yeah, Vaibhav. I think we're very privileged and very fortunate to not have had any negative repercussions of COVID, health-wise or any which other way. So very grateful, very blessed. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. You look great. You look great too. So
thank you.
Starting with the first question that I had. So you were a rocket scientist. If I can call that one. You started as a rocket scientist and you turned out to be a motivational speaker towards the end, if I can call that one, because that's what Google calls you as, right? Sure. And there has been so much before, between, and after, right? So if you had to quickly run me and all the audience to an introduction of who you are, what has been in the past, and what you do right now, and everything middle and before and after it. How would you introduce?
That's the only question we'll be able to cover in this podcast then. but here's the good part, Vaibhav. I don't know who I am. And I love that about myself because I don't like to box myself. There was a time early on in my life when I loved boxing myself. That the way you described me, I'm a rocket scientist, I'm a space scientist, I'm a doctorate, I'm an astrophysicist. And these were the words that I associated myself with. And these were the only words that I wanted to associate myself with. And life had its funny way of making me realize how it's way more powerful than I am, or my ambitions are, or my dreams are, or my predictions or imagination is. So I was actually in the US doing my PhD, planning to become an astrophysicist, join NASA as a space scientist, and devote my life to academics and whatnot. And through that journey, I just realized that physics in general was something that I was good at. It came naturally to me. But if I held a hand on my heart and asked myself, am I happy with it? Then the answer was evidently no, not any longer. And that's when I decided to quit, drop out of my PhD, come back to India, and started my life all over again at the age of 24. And joined ISB for my MBA program at 25, graduated at 26, joined management consulting, thoroughly enjoyed my time for 3 years there. And then in 2009, I became an entrepreneur. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And last year, I stepped down as the CEO of my startup, Nearbuy.com. And ever since, I've been devoting a fair bit of my time towards content creation. And I have to admit, yesterday I was watching a video of Tony Robbins. And he was speaking. And then the title came below and it said, Tony Robbins, business and life strategist. And I was like, that's it. That's who I am. That is who I am. I needed someone to tell me who I am. So for now, I'm a business and life strategist, whatever that means.
Very interesting. So, I mean, what is most fascinating about you is I have seen people all of us have seen people where, they're trying to build their brands or in terms of personal brand, which is on a rise right now, right? I'm also trying to ride the same ship right now, right? To be very frank. Two, people who are trying to build startups. So when we think about journeys, right, usually people start with try to build a personal brand to a startup. And then they're like, okay, like I want, like, all this is great. Now I want to get deep into something. And then they do things like physics and then they join NASA. But for you, it's been like completely opposite, right? The journey has been a flip side of it. which is the most fascinating about me, because even though you say that I'm a content creator now and you said this over and over again, it's hard for me to believe, saying that how is that even possible? Like, Ankur is up to something else for sure. There is something else coming. Is he working on the gig economy? Is he working on, I don't know, like a creator space? He is doing something for sure. Or he's basically testing waters of the, the creator economy. It cannot be him making content. And you are on live 3 times a day. If I'm not wrong, you have YouTube videos coming up, because I subscribe to you everywhere. And I see your content flowing in from every place. And I'm like, how is this guy is managing to do this? So it's insane, man. Like, I have so many questions, picking everything that you said in those last 2 minutes of content that you just put out. Again, I'm just saying too much of content now, but you get the idea. But before we start and go deep into your Groupon story, your your NASA story, to your current content creation story, something that again shook me, which kind of, there's so many instances which have made me like an avid follower of yours. One thing that absolutely shook me is when I heard about the fact that for 5 months you said, fuck it, I'm gonna get a six-pack. I'm like, man, what what the hell? I mean, I hope you don't mind the French, but
No, not at all.
then
I use
how
the
does
F word
that
more than I
happen?
should.
Do you want to tell about the six-pack thing first?
It was, yeah, it was, and that's why I don't like to categorize myself. It was a fascinating journey. So what had happened, Vaibhav, was in 2012, I got diagnosed with with a condition called avascular necrosis, and what it does basically is the blood to the hip bone stops, so the hip bone starts decaying and becomes really hard to walk.
Oh.
And it typically happens because of three reasons. It happens because of excessive smoking, excessive alcohols, or excessive drugs.
Mhm.
None of which applies to me. So I lie in that 10% don't know why it happened category.
Okay.
But because of that, I had to undergo a surgery, and I was on bed rest for 3 months, and I was on crutches for 5 months.
Ouch.
And I distinctly remember being a very active person, that when the disorder was diagnosed, the doctor on the prescription very clearly said, you don't want to go through any further damage to the hip bone, so stop walking. And the person stop walking likha na, it just hit me hard, because like, shit man, like how can you stop walking?
Yeah.
So of course the doctor said that I have to stop walking, and that was really hard for me. So I asked myself, when all of this was over, that what is it that I can do to tell life that this chapter of my life, this phase of my life is over? And in a moment of craziness, as I'm usually subjected to, I said, I will run. And I decided to run or sign up for the half marathon that was happening that year. So I बहुत fight mari, I trained and did everything. And I had, before the day of the marathon, never run 21 kilometers at a stretch. The maximum that I had run was 14 kilometers. But that day I ran 21. And when I ran it, instead of feeling good about it, I felt I cheated. Because I was like, यार ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है कि मैंने आज से पहले 21 किलोमीटर भागा नहीं, and today I just show up and run 21. That's like a fraud. So what can I do where I cannot cheat? Where I can't just one day wish that I can do this.
Yeah.
And that was when I decided I will get six-pack abs, because that is possibly the most intense commitment physically one can make, lifestyle, diet, everything. And you can't just one day get up and wish that you had six packs. You literally have to work towards that. So that's the long story genesis of how I got six-pack abs at the age of 33, when I didn't need to. All my friends are like, boss, there's only one reason guys get six-pack abs. It is to get married. It is to date people. What is up with you? And I was like, nothing. It is genuinely because I just wanted to throw myself a challenge of doing something that required daily commitment.
Crazy. I mean, I also a lot of times wake up and say, you know what will make me confident? And I a lot of times feel that, you know what, like getting myself a six-pack would actually make me confident. But then I'm like, that's too much of effort. Let's just eat healthy and stay fit. And I'm happy with that. And I'm like, अंदर से एक आवाज आता है, रहने दे, focus on something else. This is not your thing now. Because I've tried this. Trust me, I've tried this.
Yeah.
Tried consistent with food. I've tried consistent with gym for a month or two. And the moment you hit that shape that you're okay with, right? You're like t-shirt, bina t-shirt ka thodi na ghumne wala hu. Six-pack. That's what hits my mind. I was like, screw it. But yeah, this is crazy, man. So do you still have a six-pack?
So here's the mantra of fitness. The mantra of fitness is you should be so fit that a six-pack app is always a month away and no more. So I am at that stage. Like if I want to get six packs, you give me a month, I'll be at six packs.
Nice, amazing, awesome. So like I want to jump onto this phase of like the time where you came back from US, joined ISB, and right now you're a board of directors, right? At ISB, you're on the board.
I was no longer. It was a 2-year stint.
Nice. And yeah, from there you and from there consulting happened, and you joined the startup called as Groupon. My bad. Groupon, which is supposedly an international brand, right? Tell me what happened there to the story where, again, this is super fascinating. I've never heard of stuff like this, that a person bought the business of Groupon India. How the hell does that happen? Like this, when I heard about this, Ankur, this is when I decided that no matter what, I need to get on a call with you. Right? How does that happen? For audience who have no idea what I'm talking about, Ankur managed to buy of business of an international business. Imagine like a Uber's business, not Uber. Uber is probably a too big a business, but imagine someone's buying out a Indian entity of an international business, and that's what Ankur managed to do with Groupon. Yeah. Right? How does that work out? And tell me everything about it.
Your reaction reminds me of the reaction we had when we proposed this for the first time to the headquarters.
And I'm sure their reaction is like, what the hell?
Exactly. They're like, "Aaj ke लौंडे हमें बताएंगे हमें क्या करना चाहिए." So it was, but to their credit, it was actually a fascinating journey. So what happened was I started the Groupon India business in 2011, ran that for 4 years, and in 2011, Groupon also became public. Yeah. It listed itself and it was a grand success, but then very, very quickly it didn't become so great, and we had our own struggles and our own wars to fight. So by the time it was 2015, it was very evident that I had spent 4 years in building the Groupon India business. It was heading in the right direction, but there was a lot more that could be done. But the attention of Groupon Global was clearly on the US and Europe, which were the two largest markets for it. So I had two options. Option one, or rather three. Let me just say two. Option one was stick around. I was in the top 50 of Groupon Global. I was flying to Chicago every quarter. I was in the know. It was great money. Everything was just awesome.
You're living life.
Yeah, exactly. Like a retirement life, if you will. Option two was quit all of that and say, yahan to kuch nahi ho sakta, no one listens, no one cares, and then go and look for another opportunity, maybe start up on your own again. But
what was the third one?
Yeah, and the third one was what would come to the crazy maverick, which was, hey, why don't we buy this business from Groupon and then run it on your own? And it was honestly just an idea. It was an idea that I floated in my head, discussed it then with the senior guys at Groupon India. All of them, of course, loved it because it's just so enamoring and so exciting to even imagine. And then we began the hard journey of convincing Groupon that this is the right thing to do. And that took a really long time. It took 9 months of effort from the time we conceptualized to the time the deal got done. And then we were fortunate to partner with Sequoia, which were very generous to fund this acquisition. And that's what we did. In August of 2015, we bought the Groupon India business from Groupon, and that became Nearbuy, which is what I continued to run for 4 years until last year.
Crazy. I mean, like when I think about this, right, what stopped you now that you have built the business ground up, right? What stopped you? Like, why would you want to buy a business or something like a Groupon business? Instead, build something again from ground up. And I'm sure this time it would have been much faster. Was it the legal binding that stopped you from doing it, or was it something else?
It was partly the fact that there was, of course, rules that didn't allow me to participate in the same industry. But I think more importantly than that, Vaibhav, while I wasn't married to that industry as such, कि ये उसी में करना है, I just felt that there was a lot of under-penetrated work that we had done, which we could capitalize upon. And the fact was Groupon India was a running machinery. We had merchants, we had customers, we had a marketplace, it made money, it made profits. But I was also very clear of what are the things that Groupon should not have done, which we will not do when we become Nearbuy. And when we became Nearbuy, those were the calls that we took. So I think back then, I was convinced that taking the Groupon India business forward was the right thing to do. If you ask me today, I'd say that it's not so obvious a solution or proposal. So I will pay a lot more attention to what you're proposing, which is, hey, could you have started another Groupon equivalent from scratch, or maybe done something else? I don't know, because that's always a what if, and the answer will never be clear. But I do recognize that picking up something and changing the brand name, changing the identity was a lot harder than we imagined, particularly in a country like India. It takes a lot for people to mentally, like आज भी लोग मुझे Groupon बोलते हैं, when the fact is कि 5 साल हो चुके हैं and Groupon is not there in India. And that's because Groupon was a very established brand name. We'd spent a lot of energy and effort in establishing it. And then changing Groupon to Nearbuy was not easy.
It still is decently sized business, Groupon.
Globally, yes. Globally, it's a great business. It's large. Of course, COVID has had its impact, but before that, it's large, it's profitable. So yeah, it's a great business to be in.
I mean, so I remember those days because when that transition happened, I was working with Uber, right? And when the transition happened, all of a sudden we could see, theater ads about Nearbuy, and you trying to, show off that cool new brand right now, which used to be the boring green color brand before. And you positioned it like a, young brand to save money, and which was amazing to see, right? I think that is what was missing. And there's always this fight because though I've had a very little experience and not at the level that you did, but I've worked with global companies in the past for the last 6 years. Both of them are Silicon Valley based, and like one was Uber and then Klook, and we always had this fight of getting more attention for India, and they are always focused towards the international, the US business or the UK business. So when you talk about this, right, like it's crazy. It gives me chills saying that, man, like, oh, this was an option. This was an option to fight out. This is so amazing, man. This is amazing. Right now that you've put Nearbuy on board, and you've said that I'm going to build a business, Nearbuy basically still is converting offline business and bringing them some sense of online to it, right? That's what Nearbuy does.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I don't see this as an easy game to play at all, right? Because back in the college days, I tried to do something with Spas, specifically what you guys do that right now with Spas as well, which is supposedly the biggest part, one of the biggest parts.
Yeah.
Right? When I was in 4th year, I tried to do something with Spas, and it was painful. I struggled for 6 months to convince the owner, saying that, boss, give a small bit of discount and I'll get you business. They're like, I don't need it. I don't have to go online. I have enough business and everything around it. But like, I still can only imagine, how do you execute something such ops heavy and be profitable? Like how do you find that mix? I don't know if it is too deep into business for this podcast, but this is a genuine question I've had. Like, how do you find that?
Yeah, I think that it's a great question. I'll try to answer this as easily decipherable as possible. I think in India, it's very obvious, Vaibhav, that a combination of operations and technology is the true way of building a technology company, which needn't be true in India. Like you've been part of Uber, and for all technical purposes, Uber, not just in India but globally, is an operations company.
Super ops heavy.
It's just crazy, right? The driver side of it is just so intense. Onboarding, recruiting, training, constant monitoring. It's insane.
Yeah.
And and it looks like a really cool tech company क्योंकि app है और बहुत अच्छे से होता है और click हो जाता है, but there is just so many people behind the scenes that are doing that. And I'm fortunate that we realized this early on, that this is how it's going to be. Maybe it was the hangover of looking at the likes of Naukri.com, Make My Trip, which were the true flagship bearers of the Indian internet system, or for that matter, even Flipkart, where they built the entire logistics system ground up. It is just easy to say, online store hai, kharido, koi physical premise nahi hai, nothing like that. But it just takes so much to get that package delivered every day, and then cash handling and so on. So I think the realization was very clear that we don't want to be this cool tech company that hires the coolest engineers and works from a air-conditioned office, never gets to step out, and we build a big business. That wasn't the intention. It was very much like ki fight maar ke karna padega. Two, what really helped was our very strong belief that the market is changing and we just need to be patient. We were saying there are two ways of convincing the merchant to come online. One is to keep telling them that they should come online, or two is for them to see it themselves that their consumers have already gone online. Right. And we just waited for the second to happen. We honestly waited for the second to happen. Like I remember in 2012, 2013, literally every big company and their cousin brother and cousin chacha and cousin mama had a deal site. Like literally, there were hundreds of deal sites. Pick any big company and they had a deal site. But it was just early. And so they lost patience, they lost money, they lost everything. And while we persisted and we went through. And Jio really helped. The at least for the food category, Zomato really helped. We always saw Zomato as an enabler rather than competition.
For sure.
Because they just allowed people to browse and discover, and that made it very visible to the restaurant that, boss, before the customer is stepping in, they are checking you out. And it is not the fact that you are in this mall, in this high street, that gives you the footfall. It is because people know of you online before they even know of you offline. And once that tipping point happened, then it became easier and easier for us to pull that game off. But we thankfully built the machinery in such a way that we were always prepared with a feet on street, dedicated account management team that was just fetching and closing these merchants day in and day out.
I mean, I've been part of a couple of partnerships with Nearbuy when I was at Uber as well. So we had done a fair bit of work with Uber as well. But how's it doing now?
It's, of course, COVID was a dampener, a big dampener, and we had to readjust in multiple ways. Unfortunately, right before COVID, we had that really big log out campaign by the restaurant industry around food delivery players, and we were just caught in that crossfire. Exactly, right. So it's just been a very hard 1 year. While we were like wonderfully on track, I remember when I stepped down as a CEO, it was profitable, it was growing. After 4 years, we were finally making money month on month. And it would have been lovely to just see that through, but unfortunately, there were other plans. We're getting there. I think we're far more perseverant than most others. So I'm fairly convinced we'll make that happen.
I'm sure. Now, the big question, right? What made you realize that you want to step down and pursue content creators phase, which is again mind effing blowing to me. Like why, like who would do that, man? Like who would do that? Like what happened? What was the mindset? Why would you do it?
I had a very honest conversation with myself, Vaibhav, and it had been 9 years running Groupon India. That's a fair bit of commitment made from my side. I felt personally that I had done my bit to get to the company to a certain size, scale, stability that was expected from me. I had a fantastic team of co-founders who I could trust blindly to take the company forward and perhaps do even a better job than I could. And all my economic, financial interests and incentives were taken care of in terms of my stocks vested, my ownership being concluded. So I just felt that I could do something else. I didn't know what it would be. And honestly, I took my time. And it's not that content creation is now what I want to do full time, but I do know that this is what gives me joy. It comes naturally to me. And there are different facets of this that I can explore, very much on the lines of what you were doing, which is not just building your identity, but helping people build their persona online, be helpful in whatever manner you can that you know better than most. So I've just been spending my time doing that, interacting with first-time entrepreneurs, helping them hopefully not make the same mistakes that I made. Through that, piecemeal investing, acting as a mentor, as a coach to these startups. So it's a lot that keeps me meaningfully engaged while leaving a lot of time on my hands. I have this philosophy ki, so I think a lot in 2x2 matrices.
Okay.
And मैं हर एक चीज को 2x2 matrix में डाल देता हूँ. So one of the 2x2 matrices that I have is x-axis पे the actual effort,
okay,
low and high, and y-axis पे perceived effort,
okay,
low and high. And for me, content creation is in the quadrant of low actual effort and high perceived effort. लोगों को लगता है कि मैं अपने 24 घंटे सिर्फ कंटेंट बनाते रहता हूँ. But the reality is I spend 3 hours a week making content. And that's it. Everything else then is a machinery. I'm a very process-driven guy, so I have a team which just takes care of everything, and it's clockwork, it's a process, it's a system. And I love it. I just love it because it gives me so much free time to think about things, to actually engage with people in the right manner, to do things that I want to do, while this continues to add meaning to my time, whatever little I spend on it.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, to add a point here, right? You're saying that for people, perceived value is high. The reason is not everybody can create content like you can. It's natural to you. You see? So, I mean, for all the listeners out there, don't expect to spend 3 hours and get the kind of output that he does. Not everybody.
But the way I would do that, and Peter Thiel says this. Peter Thiel says that you gain disproportionate advantage when you do things that are not so obviously easy for others to do.
Sure. Yeah.
And my takeaway for that is, if you can devote your life towards finding that one thing that you can easily do that most people can't, that is the best joy that you can give yourself. That's the best gift you can give yourself. And it's unfortunate that it so happens that हम अपनी पहली नौकरी में जाते हैं, or when we pick up our first big job and whatnot, we first ask ourselves this question: am I good at this? But very quickly the question changes to, how can I get good at this? And while that may seem like a very fair question to ask, the problem with this question is it stops all opportunities to actually find what you're good at. Because now you're just forcing yourself to become good at something that is defined by society, by your boss, by your salary, by your relatives, by whosoever. And that's just a little unfortunate. If every time we pick something new in life, we asked, am I good at this? Am I happy doing this? And if the answer is no, we were to change, instead of trying to make that work, we would perhaps have a very different life.
Very true. Very true. So, like, based on what I understood again, right? Like, the two takeaways from here. One is that you're not only doing content creation, you're doing way more than that. I'm probably assuming you're super active on the startup space, investing space. We could talk a little bit about that. Plus, what you gave away right now is that, boss, this is not permanent. I'm doing this for now. I might do something else. So is there something running in your cards? Is there a new startup coming into the picture?
Pata nahi yaar. I really don't know. And I'm not being very secretive here. I genuinely do not know what it is. I see glimpses of it shaping up. But too early to tell.
What? So I've had this question back of my mind that I wanted to ask you any which ways, little later, but I think now is the time to ask that. That is, if there was one space that excites you right now, right? For me, it's edtech that excites me the most right now, right? For a person like you, what is that space that excites you the most? That is, let's say today everything is off and you get a choice that this is a space that you can work on, Ankur. What would that be and why?
It would conclusively be helping people become entrepreneurs.
Okay.
It's not a space. It's not an industry. It's not a profession. But I think it's definitely a purpose. And I would love to think of incubation. I would love to think of accelerators. I would love to think of fellowships. I would love to think of just going through a journey of understanding what it is to become an entrepreneur, whether it is for you or not, whether it is at that scale that you imagine, or maybe a lot lesser, whether it is bootstrapped or funded or whatever the case may be, but just go through the early legwork and heavy lifting of understanding what it is to run a startup. That gives me a lot of joy, because I do feel a lot of people become entrepreneurs because they think it's sexy, and a lot of people do not become entrepreneurs because they think it's hard, and neither of these two is true. I think it's somewhere in the middle, where a very, very high percentage of capable people are not becoming entrepreneurs, and they should, and a very high percentage of people who should have never become an entrepreneur are also becoming one.
Do you want to take a couple of examples?
Not at all.
Spill some beans on controversies. Now, Ankur, you said a very important thing, that is you want to, help people kick in their entrepreneurship journey. Now, I've had this question, which I don't have an answer to. Do you think entrepreneurship can be taught? Because I personally feel you need to be a different kind of a person to be a good entrepreneur, like the risk-taking ability, the persistence, the consistency, being okay not getting paid for. These are not common traits of common people, right? And even though I've done very small bit of entrepreneurship since in the past, I still call myself, I'm very vocal about the fact when somebody says an entrepreneur, I usually say I'm not. Because every time I started up something, I always had a cushion in the back. I started when I was in college, right? I had engineering, though it was a very successful for that age. I still had cushion. And then everything that I've done, I had Uber, I had Klook. Now, for the first time, I'm like, screw everything. I want to do something by myself by giving myself 1 year time. I'm doing this after a lot of time. Also, there is a cushion because I've had fair bit of success in the last 4 months, which made me realize that, okay, I can build something by myself now, But without that cushion, there are a lot of people who take this tab, and those are the real entrepreneurs by blood, is what I feel, right? So coming back to the question of, do you think entrepreneurship can be taught? Like, is that something that we can teach people?
I think yes, the answer is yes. To me, the answer is yes, that the entrepreneurship can be taught. I do still maintain that it is not for everyone. I feel that the motivation to become an entrepreneur is misguided. A lot of people think that entrepreneurship is a great way to make money. I feel that a lot of people think of entrepreneurship to escape their current life because they hate their job, their manager, their boss, their company. I feel a lot of people want to become an entrepreneur because it's a cool thing to do. And none of these reasons are the right reasons to become an entrepreneur. So if you have the right reason, and if you actually have the right DNA, which can be taught, it doesn't need to be something that you were born with. There is no harm in becoming an entrepreneur. And equally so, there is no shame in saying, I don't want to ever become an entrepreneur. And I'm perfectly okay going through the professional journey, because it is fulfilling. It is absolutely fulfilling. And if you were to do it the right way, there will be very, very little defining and differentiating you from an entrepreneur and otherwise. Like, is Satya Nadella an entrepreneur? Who knows, man? Like, he's as close as it gets to being an entrepreneur. And just because he doesn't own Microsoft doesn't make him not an entrepreneur. Is Sheryl Sandberg an entrepreneur? She is as good an entrepreneur as anyone else. And just because she doesn't own Facebook or didn't start it doesn't make her one or not the other. And there's so many examples like that where people have gone on to do meaningful things that maybe anyone else could have also done or never done. So to answer your question, I think entrepreneurship will definitely be taught, but it is not for everyone.
What are those traits that you look at, if you can answer this, where you say that, okay, this person probably is a guy who could test it out? Obviously, you cannot say you are going to be successful and you're not. It's impossible. I'm assuming at least, right?
I feel that there are 2 or 3 things which stand out. One is a obsessive level of curiosity, where you don't fall in love with the solution as much as you fall in love with the problem. You are constantly asking questions around the problem. Why do things happen this way? What can be done differently? How is it possible? So on and so forth. So this childlike curiosity of how, what, why, when. The second one is, I don't want to say it so that it comes across wrong, but I would almost say stability. Stability emotionally, stability financially, stability physically, stability mentally, spiritually. The reason why is because it is an intensely hard journey. It is a hard journey where you're signing up for stuff that you don't even know of, and things will go your way one way, and the other day it will not. And if you're not stable, or if you don't have an environment that gets you that stability, then it can be really, really, really stressful and harmful. And it doesn't matter then what comes out of it, because you don't want to be the entrepreneur who's running $1 billion company but is popping pills every night to sleep. You don't want to sign up for that. Like that, to me, that would not be a happy outcome of being an entrepreneur. And the third one is this knack of finding talent and being comfortable with that talent better than you.
Oh my God, amazing. Gives me chills again when you say this point.
And I feel these three are almost the if and only if conditions for genuinely enjoying the journey of being an entrepreneur.
Brilliant. Awesome. So this is me trying to validate myself by asking you these questions again. Now, going back to a specific thing that I wanted to pick your brain on is, what is your take on online education? Because with COVID kicking in, you see so many things going off, and you have an online course as well. So I would say that you're a part of that ecosystem as well, right? And what is your take on your online education? Is online education Udemy's of the world, or is it something else where there's a hybrid model? What do you think is the right balance, especially for India, right? Online education is very different for India. What is your take on that? I mean, if you have digged that space a little.
So my belief, Vaibhav, is platforms are going to become commoditized and standardized, and online education in India will replicate what offline education in India looks like, and that is it will be brand/instructor driven. What I mean by this is the following. Today, if you want to send your kids to school, there are a few names that pop up. The reason why those names pop up is because the results of the school are better, the teachers maybe of the school is better, they do a better job of telling and tom-tomming about whatever it is. So it's led by the brand. And if you want to prepare for IIT JEE, for chartered accountancy, for law, and so on, there are these very well-respected names. Those names could be individual names. Those names could be a group of individuals, but every student just gravitates toward them. And I feel that online education in India will have more or less the same construct as the offline education, where the best instructors will now not be geographically limited and will have a reckoning and a following which is far more agnostic of where the student is. And by virtue of that, they will also start attracting or associating with the right brands. So if a Vaibhav becomes exclusive to an edtech platform, then that edtech platform attracts the brand value because of Vaibhav. And if Vaibhav chooses to remain independent and do the things that he is capable of without relying on anyone, then people will naturally gravitate towards Vaibhav, and it wouldn't matter where Vaibhav is. It could be on his website, it could be on LinkedIn, it could be on any other platform, and he could literally be everywhere, and people will buy it because it's Vaibhav, not because it's the platform. So I feel that platforms are just going to become marketplaces and true blue sell-through, and it's the quality of the instructor that is going to define the following and thus the market.
I mean, if you think about it, that's exactly what Upgrad is doing right now. Sorry, not Upgrad, Unacademy.
Yeah.
Unacademy is doing right now, right?
When you look at Graphy, you get a Harsha Bogle, and then you get all these really good guys in specific niches, and very clearly they're saying the creator will drive the audience because they are so good.
So that I feel is one space, while on the other side, right, on the people who are consuming information, the students part of it, the experience that they go through. There's been a huge debate internationally. Nobody cares if it's live or recorded or anything around that. But in India, what I've seen is the perceived value of a live class is much higher than that of a recorded class, where if you think about the quality of content that could be conveyed, a recorded class could have much higher quality of content because it can be tuned, but a live class cannot be tuned. But the perceived value of a live class is much higher, and that's exactly why Unacademy has grown so big, right? While there's so many other players who have stayed smaller in that space, which is absolutely the opposite if you think about it in the international frame.
Yeah.
What do you think is happening in that space? Like, have you thought about this? Like, what do you think? Like, someone has to crack this, because the moment you say live class, it's not scalable anymore.
It is not scalable anymore. It is not. Here is the way that I think it will happen, or at least I hope it happens. Go back to a time, and I'm sure you will relate to this, and the audience will as well. If you saw when we were kids any hoarding or board of a beauty parlor, it invariably always mentioned trained by Shahnaz Hussain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Standard tha. Yeah. This was the quality check mark.
Yeah.
Now, I am lifting this up and hoping that that's what happens in education as well. And here's what will happen. Vaibhav is a quality instructor, and he knows his stuff. And he is, of course, not going to spend his time doing live classes because that's not the best use of his time. Here's what he will do, though. He will pre-record and produce great quality content, which is what you're already doing. And he will then also run training workshops for people who will be certified by Vaibhav to act as instructors. So what will happen is students will consume Vaibhav's content at their disposal, on their time, on their schedule. And then they will have office hours with instructors who will be almost emulating what Vaibhav would say, do, think if he were to take that live class. And of course, occasionally Vaibhav will come in and put up a grand show and do whatever it is. But the model will be exactly like how the US does it in the universities, which is there is a professor and then there is a teaching assistant.
Sure.
And the professor comes, gives the lecture and gets out of there. And the teaching assistant then handholds the students and conveys whatever it is. Imagine this to be now a online offline combination, where in my society, and I stay in a society which has 10 buildings and close to about 600, 700 families, why do we have to send our kids to a school? Why can't the society school be in the basement, where my kid wants to learn biology, and he will not learn it from some random Ankur Warikoo who claims to be a biology PhD and ran this. He will learn it from the best professor that there is in the world. It could be a Stanford head of biological sciences. And that individual will come and on a curriculum convey a recorded course. And then there are people who are trained in the society or live nearby, who've taken that training, go have that certification, and will then sit with that child to make them go through whatever is it that they would have. I hope EdTech goes there. I hope that that is what EdTech becomes, not just in India, but globally.
I love how you draw parallels to Shahnaz Hussain here. But it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Again, thank you. These were my questions. Personal questions that I'm throwing at you to pick you. Now, going back to that point of you making that switch from, stepping down as a CEO, right? You probably, I mean, I don't know what was your stance there. The moment when I see something like this, then I would assume that, okay, and you also kind of spoke about it a little, is you hit that financial independency stage for which you said, okay, now I can take this stance because probably I don't need, running money into the account or whatever it is, right? So what is your take on financial independency? Because this is something that is, again, going bonkers everywhere. Everybody wants to retire by 35, 40. I have my goal at 35. When I say retire, I'm not saying that kuch kaam nahi karunga, ghar mein baith ke Netflix dekhunga. But when I talk about that, I would like to do something like you're doing right now, right? Do what I personally like doing. and that's according to me is financial independency. So what is your take on that? What is your take on the overall topic?
Yeah, I look, money is important,
Yeah.
and I think it's foolish to deny yourself that awareness. But I also feel that there comes a tipping point where you should stop working for money and work and make the money work for you. So
Sure.
here's my approach. My approach is have financial stability that covers the base. It doesn't pay for your ambitions, it pays for your existence.
Right.
And then whatever time is saved through that minimal investment, you deploy that to create wealth for you. So there is money that pays the bills, and there's wealth that you create by virtue of what you know and the skills that you have. Look at how you've done it. Like, I'm a third-party observer, so I'll be making a lot of assumptions. But you're essentially creating content that will survive even beyond you, and it is something that makes you money even when you sleep. And that is the best use of your time, because you culled out time from whatever it is that you were doing. And of course, you were professionally engaged and busy and whatnot, but you culled out the time and devoted it towards creating wealth for you that hopefully will compound and get you to that financial freedom where you wouldn't have to think about money at all. But it's foolish for you to quit your job and become very romantic about the idea of chalo kuch apna karte hain, ye sab वगैरह. I think practicality is very important. Realism is underrated, and it is just very important that you have that financial backing at all points of time. People misunderstand it because then they get addicted. So they're like, ये मेरी salary जो है ये मेरे आज के bills नहीं pay कर रही है, लेकिन ये कल का मेरा इटली का vacation और परसों का मेरा घर और तरसों का मेरा helicopter भी खरीद रही है. And that is when you get caught up, because that's not wealth. That is just money borrowed at your expense of your time. That's the worst use of your time.
Hmm. So, I mean, if I may ask this point blank question saying, how do you do that math? If you, I mean, I'm assuming you probably have gone through that. How do you do that math of saying, okay, now that X is in the account, now, I mean, I don't want to talk about the X as a figure, but
Sure.
how do you come to that X?
That X is very simply a calculation of all your expenditure. And if you have that luxury, multiplied by 12 times. So you have a runway of 12 months, and either you have a runway of 12 months or you have guaranteed incoming salary, whichever of the two. So the way that I would do it is, if my expenses monthly, everything included, but not being fashionable, right? Not ki Italy bhi jana hai, ye bhi karna hai, wo sab bhi karna. Nahi. Just basics, absolutely basics. It maintains your lifestyle, doesn't make you live like a urban poor, but gives you the respect that you have. Let's say it's 50,000, 1 lakh rupees a month. So you have a job that pays you that. And you have now two choices. Choice one is, and you're not happy with the job, so you want to do something else. So you have two choices. One is you continue doing that job, become better at it, wo 1 lakh, 1.5 ho jayega, fir 2 ho jayega, so you'll keep earning, promotion, ye sab वगैरह वगैरह. Or two, you almost become like, and I use this in a bad way, you almost become an employee in your mindset. An employee in the mindset is, मैं सिर्फ उतना ही करूंगा जितना मुझे बोला गया है, और मैं फिर वापस घर चला जाऊंगा. मैं अपना दिमाग बंद कर दूंगा, अपनी आंखें बंद कर दूंगा, अपने कान बंद कर दूंगा, and I will just focus on my own self rather than what my boss wants me to do. And that means I will not grow. That means I will not have the opportunities that most other people do. But I'm okay with that. Why? Because whatever time I save by being an employee, I devote that towards building wealth for me. And that could be creating content, that could be creating a personal brand, that could be learning a new skill, that could be doing internships and side projects with really smart people that you can learn from, that could be doing fellowships or apprenticeships with people that can change the course, that could be joining and devoting time towards a network, whatever the case may be. But you're essentially saying whatever it is that I'm doing right now is not going to make or break my future, but what I spend time on besides this is possibly a shot in that direction. And that to me is, if it's a steady stream, then don't think about it. If it's not a steady stream, then I would encourage you to have at least 12 months of runway so that if shit happens, you can still hold on.
Build one at least. Start building one at least.
Correct.
Amazing. Great. Ankur, my probably one of the final few questions, because we are running out of time as well. is I know for a fact that you invest, right? Invest in startups, and I don't know if you would want to name a few here, but then what is that you look at on an early stage startup when you're starting to invest? Because that is something that me and my brother started to do as well. We made our first couple of investments as well, and for me, I only have a skewed perspective to what I think will work. Fall in love with the idea, fall in love with the person, and boom, you put your hard-earned money into someone else's dream, right? What is your take on investing? Because obviously you're way more
No,
advanced.
hardly. I don't like. I've gone on record saying that I am a really bad investor and I would make a really bad one as well. But here's the thing that I look for, and maybe that means you shouldn't look for it because I think I am a bad investor. One is, for me, investing is not a way of making money, but actually supporting the cause that I spoke of earlier, which is that of entrepreneurship. I love to be part of someone's journey, especially if they're smart, they're committed, they're driven, and the opportunity is exciting. So I have so far only invested in businesses where I know the founder very well. I like the vibe that comes from them. I love spending time with them. I feel that they are coachable, so I can actually
add value,
guide them and mentor them and add value. Yes. And and it's a space where I connect, and I can see that I can help them see through it in some way or not. If it this is almost the wrong way of angel investing, because angel investing is so risky that you almost always are likely to lose money.
Correct.
With every deal.
Correct.
So the only way to make money is to be part of almost every good deal. But that also means that it becomes very expensive for the angel investor because they need to have that net worth. If you are only picking and choosing deals, then you most likely will never make money in angel investing. So I do recognize that this doesn't work.
It's a gamble.
At least not work. It's a gamble. It's a gamble. So you have to be very clear on why you're playing that gamble. And for me, the big reason is that I get to spend time with very smart people and just get to know them for now and for future. It's funny, like the first angel investment that I made was in I think 2013 or 14, and the founder of that startup, it didn't work out, so it shut down. But I am now working with that founder on a business idea. So it's lovely. It's awesome to have him as a co-founder. It's awesome to jam with him, and there's so much that I learned from him. And who would have thought? So it didn't pay me my money, but it did give me it gave me a relationship and eventually a co-founder in a business, which is awesome.
Okay, what is that business, Ankur?
Now, under the wraps, we will. It's one of those businesses that I hope no one ever knows that I had any role to play in, and it becomes big.
Amazing. Okay, that kicks the excitement more than ever. So I'm hoping that we'll see some kind of Warikoo fellowship, like Seal fellowship, coming forward based on what I understood. Right? Since I'm a marketer, right? What is the first brand that comes into your mind when you think about good marketing?
Nike.
And Indian brand, if you may.
Swiggy.
Very interesting. Okay, so if you had, like, let's say this is before even Nearbuy happened or anything like that. Let's say you had to choose, motivational speaking, like being a speaker versus being an entrepreneur, without actually going through the journey of entrepreneurship. Which one would you pick?
Entrepreneurship, for sure.
For sure. I mean, I kind of guessed it, but yeah. So what is your advice to these young guys like me who want to ditch their jobs, right, and try starting up because they're really are passionate about the idea they're working towards? What is that one word advice that you have?
Always think of what success and failure is for you personally. I think we all fall in the trap of defining success and failure as defined by the world. But it's very important that whosoever is starting up, or for that matter, anyone in their life, they always spend time in defining success and failure for themselves. What does it mean personally for them?
Brilliant. Wow, brilliant. Okay. Finally, something you always wanted to do but didn't get time, or you couldn't do it, which I think is going to be a little tough for you because you kind of do everything that you want to.
That is the answer. I don't live my life on yaar karna chahiye tha. If there's anything at all that I want to do, I would just do it.
Just do it.
Else it's not priority.
Awesome. Ankur, one final question from my front is based on whatever you have noticed about what I've been doing. Any advice that you have, like blunt advice, something that you like, something that you don't like, whatever it is, any advice that you have on a personal front for me?
I like what you're doing here. I genuinely like what you're doing. I like the energy. I like the commitment. I like the drive. It's a great way to test the waters and figure out whether there is something meaningfully large that can be built from this. So I would be, it'll be foolish for me to advise you. You seem to be figuring things out much quicker than most other people. I just wish you the best. And it's just, you're riding a wave right now, and it'll look awesome, and it'll feel great, and it'll feel like you're on the top of the world. But do recognize that at some point of time it'll not work as well.
Sure.
And you need to be just emotionally prepared for that, because that is when your true test will happen. But I don't have any advice for you. You seem to be doing very well.
Awesome. I mean, because I've got this quite a lot of times from multiple people, though I don't ask them. I don't ask everybody for advice. Is that, you know what, you are doing things too fast, is what they say. But I believe in this fact that try fast, fail fast. You know, better done than perfect are the two things that I follow on, because I feel when we are too obsessive about something, then it will emotionally and physically drain you both. When it fails, I'm like, let's fail faster. So that's been.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's absolutely early on. The more you put yourself out, the more feedback you'll get, and if you're true to that feedback, you'll improvise better, and you'll have a rock solid product very, very fast.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ankur. It was amazing having you here, and I hope I hope you had good time as well.
I did. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Questions were very thoughtful, but thank you so much for having me, Vaibhav. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Ankur.
Great. Thank you so much, Vaibhav, for having me. For those who enjoyed this, please do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that the next video is up in your inbox.
There you go. Coming from the man himself. Awesome, Ankur. Thank you so much. And I hope we stay in touch as well.